tackle South Africa's pressing socio-economic challenges.
It's really a roundtable dialogue or a seminar that is really looking at the political administrative interface. We have realized that many challenges that government is dealing with are also as a result of relationships where ministers or, let's say, political leadership and administrative leadership. And that's why you have a very high turnover of directors generals, of heads of departments leaving government because, others will complain about political interference.
And lastly, the United Nations has warned that the entire population of the Gaza Strip is at risk of famine. UN Humanitarian Agency spokesperson Jens Lackey says Gaza is on the verge of catastrophe. He has accused Israel of blocking all but trickle of humanitarian aid since partially lifting a blockade earlier this month.
This limited number of truckloads that are coming in is a trickle. It is drip feeding food into an area on the verge of catastrophic hunger. It's not a flood. Gaza is the hungriest place on earth.
Recapping on your top stories, the Nigerian military has detained over 24 soldiers and members of the police force over sales of weapons from military stockpiles to armed groups. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
All right, coming up in your sports news this hour, we will tell you about the disparity in financial power between European leagues as well as the most African leagues make it quite difficult for African clubs to even acquire homegrown grown talent. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold will become a Real Madrid player this coming Sunday after Liverpool accepted a fee to release the defender early on his contract. Details at 4:30.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Kenya. Good afternoon to you, Ghana, Senegal, Nigeria. Good afternoon to you, Eswatini, Tunisia. Good afternoon to you, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Thami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. A lot in store for you coming up today. We'll take a look at the impact of the court battle regarding the US trade wars. Could this just throw disarray into the Trump administration's push to quickly seal off some trade deals during the 90-day pause from tariffs? Also coming up today, a look at countries forming the East African Community Bloc and how negotiating as a bloc might impact tariffs and the economic benefits it might have for them, but also not forgetting the smaller countries. Will they be disadvantaged by this move? And as we do every single Friday afternoon, we bring you our weekly business roundup with Victor Khomuswana, looking at the leading business stories on the African continent. Welcome to it. It's gone 8 minutes after 4 p.m.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
We begin here this afternoon. South Africa's Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Ndabeni, has once again underscored the urgent need to improve access to funding for small and medium-sized enterprises. She made these remarks during a media briefing marking the countdown to the inaugural Global Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Ministerial Meeting, which is set to take place in Johannesburg in the month of July. The event will be hosted by the South African government in partnership with the UN Small Business Agency. Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
In just under 2 months, South Africa will host the first ever global ministerial meeting on small and medium-sized enterprises in Johannesburg. Themed Navigating the Business Frontiers, the event marks a significant milestone for the continent. Minister of Small Business Development, Thami Ngubeni, says it's a turning point for Africa's economic role on the world stage.
Today signifies a pivotal chapter for South Africa and our global commitment to small businesses. Every time I talk about small businesses, people want to go micro. I want to put it here that we are a portfolio responsible for both micro, small and medium enterprises.
Ministers from across the globe will gather to elevate the importance of small businesses in shaping a more inclusive and resilient global trade system just ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit later this year.
We've got to make sure that there's affordable infrastructure, there's affordable technologies, and the green industry presents that opportunity to ensure that the sector thrives and participate and not be left out in their own economies. Fourthly, is the issue of trade and market access. As global value chains are reconfigured with countries shifting towards heightened levels of trade protectionism.
Access to finance continues to be a key barrier for small-medium enterprises. Minister Ngubeni says her department is committed to breaking down these barriers and unlocking real opportunities for entrepreneurs.
Our department, we are steadfast in our commitment to create a more enabling legislative and policy environment that empowers small businesses to grow, scale up, and compete on the global stage, because many people are complaining that we seem to be focusing only on early stage startups, and it is not true. We also have interventions that are targeting medium-owned businesses that foster sustainability.
Ms. Pamela Coke Hamilton, Executive Director of the International Trade Center, emphasizes that this meeting comes at a time of profound global shifts, ranging from trade policy realignments to rising sustainability standards that businesses must now navigate.
Comes at a time of major changes in global trade, from tariff-related policy shifts to the rise of digital technologies, changing the way we do business, to climate emergencies, forcing businesses to rethink operations. In this context, what we can say is this: when the winds shift, you have to anchor your ship. In times of uncertainty, we double down on what works. What works and what has been proven to work, as we've experienced firsthand over 6 decades, is equipping small businesses to navigate major changes.
As the world prepares for the G20 summit, the ministerial gathering in Johannesburg sets the stage for bold action. For South Africa and its partners, it's not just about policy, it's about empowering small businesses to thrive in a rapidly changing economy. The countdown has begun. For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg.
From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation, Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It's gone exactly 13 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. South Africa's Trade and Industry Minister Park Staal has stressed the need to strengthen the political administrative interface to boost government performance and service delivery. Speaking to Channel Africa at a presidential roundtable in Pretoria, South Africa, Staal said the initiative supports the National Development Plan's goal of building a capable state. He also reflected on South Africa's recent U.S. trade mission, calling it a success in highlighting strong investor interest. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke with the Trade Minister, Park Staal.
Well, I think firstly it's important that we improve the capacity of the state to deliver on its mandate, and what the DP has convened is a forum that seeks to build cohesion within the state in terms of political an administrative interface, in terms of output, and in terms of intergovernmental relations. So it's a very important initiative just to ensure that the state functions better and that it functions optimally.
We are talking about investments. You traveled to the US to main relations led by the President, you and Minister Steenhuisen and Minister Ngubeni. In terms of trade, Minister, are we looking good in luring investors into our country after the sour relations that we had with the US?
Well, firstly, I think that it is important to acknowledge the feedback that we've received from South Africans with regards to the visit to the US. It's been quite positive to the extent that it demonstrates the extent to which South Africa is invested in the issue of trade, of investment, of economic growth, and of course our bilateral relations with the United States of America. I think it's important that we start by acknowledging the extent of investments by the USA in the South African economy. The US is the second largest trading partner to South Africa. It has 600 plus companies that are invested in the South African economy, and there's greater appetite by American enterprises to invest in the South African economy. So they are an important trading partner. It's important that we nurture and build a relationship with the US. Of course, at the same time, you need to diversify your trade partners, but start by consolidating those that you have. On the basis of the proposal that we put before the US, we anticipate that we would get feedback. The preliminary feedback was quite positive. Of course, we need to engage on the detail in terms of what the future has in store in terms of our trading relationships. And that is about mutual benefit. We went there and said our approach in going to the US is to ensure that there's mutual benefit to both countries. And in our context, it's also about benefit for the African continent. We did not leave behind the importance of AGOA in our engagements.
On that AGOA, how are things looking?
We essentially are engaging. The U.S. administration said it's important that we also engage with the Senate and Congress, and therefore these engagements would be continuing.
It is exactly 16 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. We're rounding out and concluding and conducting that interview with Minister Parks now is Michael Mbewe. He is the Channel Africa's reporter. It is exactly 17 minutes after 4 p.m. In just a moment, we take a look at the East Africa bloc, the community, and how trading together would likely to impact them.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Interracial relationships. And now you are based in the States and you are married to a beautiful white woman, white lady.
I learned that, for us in our culture, we literally can speak our mind. I remember when we had started dating and whatnot, and, she picked up like a little bit of weight. And me, I was like, oh, wow, you must be happy in this relationship because look at you. You look great. You're even picking up some weight. And she got really, really offended. And it took I think it was about a couple of hours before I could realize that, because I could tell that she was off after that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. Until later when I was talking to her, I'm like, you are really, really off today. And then she expressed that, yeah, because you're telling me that I'm picking up some weight. And I'm like, in my culture, when you are gaining some weight, it means you're happy.
Yes.
So that's what I was trying to imply.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
Now, countries forming the East African Community Bloc have been urged to negotiate their trade agreements with third parties as a bloc to improve negotiation leverage. The East African Business Council, the EABC Acting Executive Director Adrian Raphael Njau, says the main purpose behind this move is to ensure that the EAC Common External Tariff is uniformly implemented by all EAC partner states, and that the coordinated EAC strategy in internal trade would foster trust among partner states. It would reinforce a common trade policy. For more on this, we joined on the line by the former Deputy Secretary General at the East African Community, Alois Mutambegwa. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon.
Perhaps let's start off, sir, by asking how negotiating as a bloc will enhance the EAC's bargaining power. And this is in comparison to individual country negotiations.
Way back in 10 years, when we were negotiating the Economic Partnership Agreement with Europe, European Union was negotiating as a single bloc, negotiating with individual countries within East Africa, COMESA, and SADC. And you can imagine the type of negotiations that would have looked like. It's a negotiation between an elephant and an animal smaller than an antelope. There is no bargaining power. So it's not even enough to have the EAC negotiating as a bloc, COMESA negotiating as a bloc, or SADC or ECOWAS. It is even not enough to have the Africa as a bloc negotiating, because the bigger the better, and it's by and large to do with the trade muscle. So we experienced challenges 10 years ago. Some countries disagreeing and going their own way, and there were trade left, right, and center by the European Commission. I hope it's not going to be the same again. We've had, as an EAC bloc, a trade and investment treaty with the United States. We concluded it 10 years back. And I also agree with the person who is sounding the proposal that in light of the existing common markets and a single customs territory with a common external tariff and harmonized internal tariffs, it is definitely paramount to have the EAC negotiating as a bloc.
And what did you find, Mr. Mutamingwa, as the main challenges in negotiating as individuals? Did the East African community countries feel that they were being taken advantage of? And are there specific blocs that have elicited this desire to be able to trade as the bloc? You mentioned the European Commission. Which are the blocs that have been that have brought challenges for you?
The bigger the better. We are talking about negotiations between parties that are at parity levels in terms of the give and take. That's what I can say.
Let's take a look at the economic benefits that the member states are likely to get through a bloc-wide trade negotiation.
We've had challenges in areas like market access for products, issues arising relating to the sanitary and phytosanitary standards for agronomical products. And these are issues that can be negotiated when we are negotiating as a unified bloc, because we follow same quality standards and we have those regulations. We've got East African quality standards, meteorology and testing system, but that cannot be recognized unless we present them and hold the position as a bloc. These are just some cases in point.
And what are some of the measures that need to be put in place to ensure that smaller economies within the EAC bloc are not disadvantaged in these agreements? Because focus ordinarily does fall to the larger countries.
There is aid for trade, for example. Smaller economies cannot negotiate aid for trade. But when you are negotiating that package as a bloc, even the smallest economy would benefit from that.
And as far as the legal framework is concerned, does the current EAC legal framework provide the necessary infrastructure? Is it well equipped to handle bloc-wide trade negotiations, or are there some reforms that will need to take need to take place in order to create a legal framework?
Myself, supported by the Director General for Trade, we had a strong team with expertise to negotiate for the entire bloc, supported, of course, by the Minister of Trade. The structuring was not going to be an issue. The issue was to agree on a matter of principle to constitute a bloc, the EAC, as a negotiating entity. Of course, the European Union was objecting to that.
And then what is the way forward as far as the legal framework, though, is concerned? Does it
is to stand
exist?
our ground. The only way forward is to stand the ground. I hope those I left behind can stand the ground.
Now, the EABC, the East African Business Council, the acting executive director there, Adrian Raphael Njau, says that this will foster trust among the partner states. How important will fostering trust among the member states be? And is that a tall order? Is the gap in trust wide?
It is, of course, decisions are taken right from partner states, and the decisions are taken, it's a consensus. Unless you do proper consultations with countries, you cannot come up with consensus. And I think it's now high time, given the increased number of membership to the EST bloc, from the initial 5 to 8 now. Is it 8? Yes, 8 members additional: South Sudan, Somalia, and DRC. So it's now time to revisit the way of making decisions. Consensus has been a cause for failure.
Mr. Aloy Mutambingwa, thank you very much. Not ambiguous at all. Consensus, he says, has been a way leading to failure. We thank you for your insight and your commentary this afternoon, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. That's Mr. Aloy Mutambingwa. He's the former Deputy Secretary General at the East African Community, also giving in some background and institutional knowledge and history of the road so far, saying they've got to toe the line, they've got to stand their ground, and trying to get consensus from everybody is not what is going to lead to success in this particular endeavor. We'll keep a close eye on developments on that front. It is exactly 27 minutes after 4 p.m.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, the Product of the Year South Africa last night announced the 2025 winners of the country's most innovative consumer products. This was at an event held in Johannesburg, South Africa. Product of the Year is the world's largest consumer-voted award for product innovation, operating in over 43 countries. The awards were established in France more than 3 decades ago to guide consumers on the most innovative products while rewarding manufacturers for quality and innovation. This report was compiled by Nhlanhla Mahlangu and voiced by Ayanda Mkhwanazi.
South African consumers have once again cast their votes in the country's most comprehensive independent product survey. Product of the Year South Africa unveiled the 32 winners of the 2025 Product of the Year Awards, showcasing the most innovative products and services across multiple categories, spanning from personal care to finance. Mike Nolan, Global CEO of Product of the Year, says they are seeing incredible growth and momentum in South Africa.
Well, it's a fantastic thing. We started about 30 years ago, and Product has got bigger and bigger, and particularly here in South Africa. It's all about trying to find the best new products for shoppers. We think there's something called the tyranny of choice. You walk into a shop, there's so many new products. How do you find the right one? Product of the Year exists to get other shoppers to vote on the best new things. We saw some brilliant products win tonight. Product of the Year logo on it. It helps you choose the best new product in that sector. So we're getting bigger and better. We are looking at taking Product of the Year into East Africa this year. So we're going to expand across Africa, which is really exciting for us because the last couple of years has seen a lot of challenges globally. We've had challenges in the US, challenges in India, and there have been challenges here in South Africa as well. But this year, we really felt some momentum building behind Product of the Year. And also behind the manufacturers in Africa. We've seen some wonderful winners here. So there's a real sense, I know it's a difficult market, but a real sense of optimism for us around African manufacturing.
He says in South Africa, winners are chosen by 2,000 consumers in a Kantar-conducted nationally representative study.
The manufacturers have to choose to put them forward, and then we have them researched by Kantar. So Kantar is the world's largest research agency, and they pick the clients, they pick the people who we go and speak to. So we use 2,000 people here in South Africa, and they go out and decide which winner in each category. So the research is independent of Product of the Year. Kantar, the world's largest research agency, do it with us in about 30 countries around the world. So it's nothing to do with Product of the Year. It's an independent process, which is why Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle work with us around the world, because we use local people, local shoppers in South Africa, local shoppers in America, local shoppers in the UK. They decide what wins Product of the Year, not us.
Banking group Standard Bank received 5 awards in categories ranging from banking, general investments and student loans, amongst others. Itumeleng Matlaila, Standard Bank brand and marketing for personal banking, says they are thrilled.
We are so excited, but for us it reinforces that the hard work we've put in, putting our customers first, is finally paying off. You know, these things don't happen by themselves. They don't happen by accident. We got 2 last year. We went back to make sure that we work even harder, meet our clients' needs even more, and to get 5 is just so amazing for us.
This year's entries included a wide range of innovations launched between 1 January 2023 and 31 December 2024. All entrants were judged on innovation, function, design, packaging or ingredients.
That was the voice of Ayanda Mkwanazi in that report compiled by Nhlanhla Mahlangu. Takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Buntle Hedbush is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Thami, and good afternoon. In our final look at the indicators this afternoon, $1 is trading at 17 Rand 86 in South Africa. In Botswana, it's at 13 Pula 30. Namibia, it's trading at 17 Namibian dollars 86. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 26 kwacha 62 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 40. In Ethiopia, at 135 birr 76. In Uganda, it's trading at 3,618 shilling. In Tanzania, at 2,689 shilling. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,587 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is at 49 Egyptian pound 73. In Tunisia, it's trading at 2 dinar 98. In Algeria, 131 dinar 58. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 10. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,850 to the US dollar. Now looking at our commodities this afternoon, gold is trading at $3,285 and platinum at $1,052 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $62.60 a barrel. And those are your financial indicators this afternoon. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you to Buntle Hedbush. Let's turn our focus now to the business of sport with Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Thami. A very good afternoon from the sports day. So generally, no African clubs often lack the financial resources to compete with European clubs for top African players, let alone buy them back. So the disparity in financial power between European leagues and also most African leagues makes it quite difficult for African clubs to even acquire homegrown talent, let alone players who have already established themselves in Europe. So Zimbabwean football side Simba Bora FC Secretary General Turai Yani says he would like to see African players come back home where they are paid well by the home teams and where they'll be able to afford their salaries that they would have been getting paid in Europe. Take a listen.
By comparing Europe and Africa, we're a bit far from it, from that's how it looks now, unfortunately. But it is our dream that we come to a point where we can say, for example, one of our big African players who are in Europe, our local clubs can buy them back and be able to maintain a lifestyle that they can enjoy in Europe in terms of the finances and how we pay the players. We need Africa as a community to coherently come together and work on this big, broad issue.
Bora Simba won their first premiership title just last year. The team is now planning to sign a striker during the upcoming transfer window next month. Turai further elaborates on the team's current business model.
Simba Bora should be self-sustainable. We are not at that stage yet. We need to be able to run our business, our club as a business, in terms of the club being able to sustain itself. The club owning businesses that then give profit that can sustain the club.
At the same time, the team has been applying their trade in the Zimbabwean Premiership for about 3 seasons now, Turai further outlining their 5-year plan to grow the team and hopefully to sell those players to the African as well as European markets.
So 3 seasons in the Premier League is too early for us to talk about Simba Bora as a business, but it's our 5 to 10 year plan that when we get to the 5th year or the 8th year or the 10th year, Zimbabwe will be big business. Just watch out this season. We may be selling several players in Africa, and this is how we start. These are the baby steps towards making Zimbabwe a business.
For the field now, Trent Alexander-Arnold will become a Real Madrid player on Sunday, the 1st of June, after Liverpool accepted a fee to release the defender early from his contract. Now, sources at Liverpool have indicated that the fee of $11 million, which Real have made as a single upfront payment. However, sources at the Spanish club have also suggested they have paid a lower amount. A payment has been agreed to allow the England right back to join Real in time to play in the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, the 26-year-old will then be able to leave Liverpool on a free transfer when his contract expires on the 30th of June. Alexander-Arnold, who had already confirmed he will leave the club, Liverpool, during the course of the season, has agreed a 6-year deal, and his contract includes a $9 billion buyout clause. FIFA approved an additional window from the 1st until the 10th of June, allowing teams to register new players for the expanded month-long FIFA Club World Cup, which gets underway on the 14th of June and will be held in the USA. Finally, Manchester United, Everton, Nottingham Forest as well as Newcastle United all showed strong interest in the England under-20 striker Liam Delap after a $40 million release clause was activated following Ipswich's relegation from the Premier League this season. So Manchester City had a buy-back option after selling Delap for about $30 million last season, but opted not to use it. Earlier on this month, the player was then given permission by Ipswich Town to speak to several interested clubs. A decision was expected before the first transfer window, which will run from the 1st until the 10th of June, with the European Under-20 Championship as well as the FIFA Club World Cup also on the horizon. Over the past week, it became more evident that the choice was between Manchester United as well as Chelsea, but it seems the Blues' final day victory over Nottingham Forest, which confirmed Champions League qualification, was one of those deciding factors. That's a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. Have a great sporting weekend. All the best of luck to Mamelodi Sundowns. Hopefully they'll get to win the CAF Champions League, facing off with Pyramids FC in the final this coming Sunday. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It is exactly 4:39 Central African Time. There you heard Musiburi Makura showing her bias and her favourites as far as the soccer teams are concerned. Well, we'll see, won't we, Musiburi Makura? Well, back to the business of the day. As the war of tariff continues in the United States court, there are questions being raised if this is an end to the U.S. trade war, with concerns that this might affect ongoing trade talks between the United States and other countries. Some commentators say that these court cases might just throw into disarray the Trump administration's push to quickly seal trade deals. This is during the 90-day pause from the tariffs. So what does this spell for the approach that Trump has taken with the countries that have been affected by the imposed tariffs? To help unpack this further this afternoon, we joined on the line by Dr. Seyfet Tadel, the director of the Center for Governance and Intra-Africa Trade Studies at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. Good to have you with us, Doctor. Thank you very much for your time and welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. Yeah.
So, Doctor, what is your take that the ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade could be the end of Trump's trade war? Are you in agreement with that?
No, I don't. Look, my opinion is always focus on Africa. And as I always said, we have to be equal partner in trading. So that whatever discussion with the U.S. it should be on based of equal opportunity for both of us. Regarding Goa and other bilateral or multilateral agreement, we have to revise it just to benefit both sides. For me, there is no free lunch for both sides. So we have to concentrate only on trade and trade only. We shouldn't claim any kind of beneficiation from AGOA or other mechanism. We have to trade like any other country, like Europeans, Asians, like Middle East. That the way it be. And we have to add our values on our trade, and we have to be very competent in this regard. Yeah.
You say that, Dr. Tadel, but we've seen Trump's approach being a very transactional approach, even in issues of security and sovereignty, even with the Ukraine. In order for him to assist with the Ukraine, there was a trade of minerals. Is that even a possibility within the Trump administration? Because it really does look like a tit for tat. It's not just plain trade, as we have seen.
Look, one thing we have to remember that his constituencies elected him just to push this agenda. So our take should be how we can trade with US, That is our agenda. We shouldn't dwell, what he's doing, how he's operating his foreign trade or the security issue. So we have to focus in one thing only. How we can trade with the United States, with Europe, and with other partners, by the way, with the BRICS and so on. So that should be our focus. Critiquing, the U.S. administration at this point, it doesn't help us much. Rather than we have to see ourselves how we can be competent in the world stage. Look, by far we are the weakest continent to trade with the Europe, with America, with equal bargaining power. So that is we have to bring it in our continent rather than claiming any other benefits from these institutions. Countries.
We've seen Trump's administration's emphasis being on bilateral agreements rather than multilateral frameworks. What does this mean for Africa's engagement in global multilateral frameworks such as the African Continental Free Trade Area? You touched a little bit on that, but also let's perhaps focus on other multilateral mechanisms under the African Union.
Look, let me repeat myself. We have to be serious enough just to be taken, seriously from other partners. The African Union and RECs are in shambles, For example, you can raise, the issue of SACU. SACU is not a recognized REC, and one of the strongest REC, by the way, in the African continent, but it's not recognized by the African Union. So the other RECs, we can talk about EAC and Senesad. Senesad, for example, it's not even in existence. It doesn't exist. So we have to work, our homework properly, and competent in the global trade. That is the only way we have to proceed in our approach. So one of the things is we don't have, a proper, this regional economic communities, they don't have a proper mandate to deal with the external bodies. So we have to be represented by AFCTA. My question is, does AFCTA have the proper leverage and a proper muscle to do that? I really doubt. So we have to do our homework, and properly. That's the whole emphasis of the article. Yeah.
The expiration of the African Growth and Opportunity Act is nigh. How do you believe Trump's America First policy and his plans to grow the U.S. economy will influence trade relations with Africa, and particularly in regards to AGOA?
For me, I said, we were claiming, repeatedly the decolonization of our trading system. So for me, Trump administration is a blessing in disguise in so many ways. The previous administration, they were doing, perpetually, maneuvering of trade for a long time. We have to revive that one. But the Trump administration is saying, there is no exceptional treatment for anyone. Just come and deal one by one. As you mentioned, he's looking at bilateral agreement just to have with country based. That is just to make a weak position. For example, if he's dealing directly with South Africa or with Egypt or with Nigeria, you'll have a weak position. But if he's dealing with African Union, the issue is a little bit different. So my answer is African Union should come up, with a robust kind of proposal, and we have to push that agenda as a collective. That is when we can win, including the US, the European Union, and with the Chinese and other global power.
Well, we thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sefi Tadel, and your sentiments there about the importance of negotiating as a collective, also being echoed by the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. They're pushing for a unified approach towards U.S. tariffs to ensure that Africa has a mutually beneficial strategy in dealing with the United States. We thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Dr. Seif Tadel. He's the director of the Center for Governance and Intra-Africa Trade Studies at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. He takes us to exactly 4:48.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
Now, the Trump administration advisor Elon Musk says he's stepping back from his government role following frustrations with federal bureaucracy. Musk headed up the president's efforts to cut jobs and reduce government waste under the newly created Department of Government Efficiency. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
Well, it's all change at the top in Washington, with Elon Musk exiting the Trump administration. For the last 4 months, Musk has seemingly been President Donald Trump's right-hand man, becoming the man who wielded so much influence and even a chainsaw as he slashed government jobs. His time in Washington has been tumultuous and highly disruptive. He's overseen perhaps the largest and fastest government cost-cutting of any administration, purging the ranks of government employees, all in the name of trying to cut costs, reduce wastage, and streamline the federal government. He dismantled the US Agency for International Development, USAID, the key agency for delivering much-needed aid to African nations in the space of just a few days, and axed more than 250,000 government jobs, although he never quite achieved his promised $2 trillion reduction of the federal government budget. Musk announced his departure on X, writing that he would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wastage spending, adding the cost-cutting mission of the Department of Government Efficiency would only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. The White House is now reportedly in the process of offboarding Musk. His departure, though, is not unexpected. He's been working as a special government employee, meaning he's only allowed to work in the federal position for 130 days a year, and that's roughly the amount of time that he's been in his role since Donald Trump returned to the White House in January. The South African-born tech tycoon says he plans to spend more time focusing on his own businesses, and even acknowledged recently that he has perhaps neglected his Tesla and SpaceX enterprises. Nick Harper, SABC News, Washington.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
It is exactly 10 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. It is also a Friday, and you know exactly what that means. This is when we touch base with Victor Khumoswana, author of Africa is Open for Business, and Africa Bounces Back, as we unpack some of the leading business stories on the African continent. A very good afternoon to you, Victor. Good to have you with us once again.
Good afternoon, Thami. Good to talk to you again. It's Friday.
Well, our first story today is really one that's had the entire continent buzzing. We focused on it yesterday, but the former Mauritanian finance minister, Tar, now elected president of the African Development Bank. Was that a surprise for you?
Yeah. I can't say I knew exactly which way it would go, Thami, but Sidi all time, he was the most experienced, I can say, of the lot when it comes to someone who has run a development finance institution, because he ran the Arab Bank for Development in Africa. So he at least was credited with growing the capital base of that bank by more than 300% during the 10 years that he was there. You know, he has the more experience of Amadou Hott, who was from Senegal, Samuel Maimbo from Zambia. But I had hoped as a South African that Swazi Chabalala rather would have been given the nod. You know, it would have been a much better feeling, because he was also Johnny came lately. She had been in the position of senior vice president. So I thought she stood a chance, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, I was behind her. But I think the man who ran the Arab Bank for Development in Africa, because of how important the Middle East has been in driving FDI into Africa, he just might be the person. He promised to restructure the key functions of the bank, including the time frames for the process implementation. So if you think about it, if he delivers on that, he probably will be the man. He got more than 70% of the overall vote, so I think he's got the popular support.
He certainly does, and I wonder why the huge gap. I mean, at some point, your favorite candidate was sitting at around 5%, and that's when she dropped off.
Yes. I can't say I know exactly how the development banks operate when it comes to election. I haven't operated at that level, but it's got an element of politics, it's got an element of regional lobbying, it's got a whole lot of things. So I do not know if it's not a matter of the Francophone Africa. I don't know. I just can't know. But you know what? When you go for positions like this one, who knows? And I don't want to start speculating and saying patriarchy and whatever. But that's why I just looked at his experience at the Arab Development Bank and thought he has already been in charge of the whole bank, not just the portfolio within a bank. And 10 years is a long time if you look especially at his track record, growing the capital base more than threefold.
I mean, certainly a very worthy contender and winner of that, we must say. But all of the finalists were really impressive. Let's take a look now at the equity group, if we may, Victor. They reflected a profit after tax which dropped by 4% to 120 million US dollars. What does one attribute that to? This is obviously year on year.
They say it was the third quarter to March, which is, no, not the third quarter, it's quarter one in 2025. So they are comparing it as in quarter to March this year, 2025, to quarter to March 2024. There are two main reasons the way they explain it. Of course, they are reporting an 11% increase in staff costs, and that's what happens when you're globalizing. Equity Bank is quite a large bank on the African continent, run by one of the best bankers we know, the Kenyan James Mwangi, who has twice been the Financial Times Banker of the Year, African Banker of the Year. He's a former Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year winner. So he's a heavyweight. The liquidity position, though, he says, James Mwangi, it's still very solid. It's above industry average at 58.5%, which means if you are banking with them, the bank is liquid. It should be able to honor its commitment because it's above what the industry said. Profit before tax in the insurance business also going up 87%. So they are saying total capital position is solid, the liquidity is solid, so this drop can be explained in terms of those operating costs going up 17.4% and the higher staff costs, which were up 11%.
Now, the African Development Bank Group and the government of Togo are making some headway in ensuring that there's a sustainable financing facility in the country.
Yeah.
Could you take us through that credit guarantee agreement that's in place?
Yeah, when you're a small country, the allocations at the African Development Bank go according to the performance of the economy. Togo is a very small economy. Benin, Togo, as you know, Togo is the neighbor of Ghana. So if you are in Ghana, you go east, you'll go into Togo and then Benin and then Nigeria. It's a small country, but it's important because of that Ibadan railway, the coastline, the development that is trying to connect the Bight of Benin all the way to Senegal with the infrastructure. So the local port and the infrastructure there is very important to the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. But the credit guarantee obviously was needed because they needed 4 times what their performance will justify. And, I'm 50-50 about this green project, Thami, because I'm not always sure that Africa is getting a fair deal here. To get an extension of credit, if you're not sure you're going to be able to pay back just to do climate adaptation, I sense this might be taking a little too far. They're saying they're going to do climate adaptation, social and green projects. They're going to do biodiversity preservation. That's good, but I'm not sure pollution control should be the reason countries getting so much debt, especially because Africa is not entirely responsible for the pollution that's happening here. There's a lot of dumping of second-hand cars. There are a whole lot of things that I don't think Africa, especially a country as small as Togo, should be getting into debt for.
And as we wrap up, if we can, taking a look at the 7 fastest growing tech cities and the fact that they are in sub-Saharan Africa. Who would have guessed?
Exactly, Tan. Good point. Lagos leading the pack there. And if you just know what's happening there, companies like InterSwitch, Flutterware, Jumia, these are serious fintech and retail e-commerce businesses. Johannesburg is in second place, Cape Town in third, and that's driven by artificial intelligence, biotech. That's where Yoko is, if you know the South African company Yoko, by Khawelo Mapai rather, Khawelo's brother. Then Nairobi in fourth position because of fintech. You know about M-Pesa, you know about Safaricom. And then Dakar in Senegal and Accra, and then Kampala complete. So I'm happy that it's covered. It's almost east, west, south, and if you like, East Africa. So it shows that fintech, global tech ecosystem is not leaving Africa out of the game. And we should be happy because fintech and e-commerce in general, the Internet of Things, can help us bypass or leapfrog developed countries by using technology.
Certainly very impressive. Victor Khumsano, always a pleasure. Thank you for our weekly business roundup.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. That's Victor Khumusan, author of Africa is Open for Business and Africa Bounces Back. He's also the Executive Director for Marketing and Communication at the University of Limpopo. Well, that's how we come to the end of the Friday edition of Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Thank you to our team, Onele Nsinzio News, Bontle Headbush on the Economics Desk, Sport with Mosiburi Makura, and to our production team, our producer Mabo Buloka, our technical producer Ntando Lutuli, and on social media, Nzako Mashaba. I am Thami Ngubeni. This is Channel Africa. You have yourself a splendid Friday further as we hand the reins over now to the French desk where the Joëls take over. Have a blessed one.
Vue d'Afrique, un magazine des actualités en français sur Channel Africa.